30-pound frumpy desktop to portable netbooks, the personal computer has come a long way. How has technology changed since the 1980s, and where is it going from here? Here to tell us is Sasha Sagan of PCMag.com. Sasha, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot for having me here.
All right, now you got a computer in a suitcase. When I worked at IBM, our most powerful portable computer was literally a suitcase. You had to carry it around.
Well, I was an auditor in the 90s, and we literally carried the big monstrosity from client to client.
So what do you have?
Well, what I've got here is basically my computer from primary school, which was an Atari personal computer that I would write all my little grade school term papers on and play Ms. Pac-Man a lot.
That's not really it, though, is it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the computer.
It's not like you saved it all.
No. We went and got a new one. This was a big PC Mag Labs project for us a couple of years ago. But it really shows one of the big differences between now and the 80s, which is that in home computers in the 80s, you had all of these different incompatible systems. Some people had these Ataris, some people were Apple II, some people were Commodore 64. At work, a lot of people had IBM PCs. None of these could talk to each other. None of these did the same thing.
Is this when the DOS operating system came out? Was that the 80s as well?
Yeah, the 80s was the heyday of DOS.
Right.
Windows really happened starting in 1990.
Right.
And so most people interacted with computers through this text-based, typing in things online way of doing things.
You know, my father worked at IBM, and we talk about it all the time. He was a genius. You know, he would rip the fan out of our air hockey game and make an exhaust system for his greenhouse out of it, right? So he would do stuff like that. Yet I feel like choking him. Like, how could you not see the Internet was coming? How could you not see this in the 80s when we were making personal computers? It seemed like it would be, once the idea was hatched, it would seem like it would just flow, ideas.
Well, that's another one of the big differences between now and the 80s, which is that computers nowadays are basically connected terminals. The reason a lot of people have computers now is to connect to the Internet. But back then, almost nothing was connected. But you started to see the seeds. Some computers in colleges, for instance, started connecting in early versions of the Internet. And some computer hobbyists, like me in high school, for instance, I would call up these things called bulletin boards using my phone and my dial-up modem. You remember Matthew Broderick and War Games?
War Games, right?
War Games.
Exactly. That is what led to the Internet.
But you know what's different is that I remember having to write code in school. Like, that was a class, right?
Like C++?
Pretty much. And then like all you know, it was pages and pages to get it, add two numbers together. And if it did, you thought you were the smartest kid on the planet. We don't learn about the insides anymore. We take computer classes to teach us how to make it do things. Nobody understands, except for a few select people, what goes on the inside anymore.
And that's one of the things that makes us at PC Mag a little sad. But yeah, back in the 80s, everybody was a programmer.
Right.
Everybody knew how to program these. Admittedly, they were much simpler devices back then. You could write 3 or 4 lines of code, and it would make it do something useful. Now, the software systems, the operating systems, are so complicated that it takes a bit more knowledge to get started programming, and a lot of people just don't see any need.
Is the netbook, are netbooks here to stay? Because you mentioned connecting to the Internet. That's what we want to do these days. But we can do that on our phones. You know, we can do it on our iPhones. We can do it on all our smartphones. Do we really need a netbook to do it? And what about the slate computers, too?
Well, computers are definitely getting thinner and thinner and lighter and smaller and having more and more battery life. But you're not going to see smartphones totally overtake computers for the simple reason that we have 2 hands. They are this size. We have 2 eyes. They are this far apart. Our 2 hands are going to want to type on a keyboard right here or interact with something big enough to touch. Our eyes are going to want to look at something at least as wide as our head. So the smartphone is a great thing, but it's not going to be your primary computing device.
So the computer's not going away.
The computer is not going away. Maybe the desktop PC is going away, but the computer, in terms of a terminal that's about yay big, that you do various kinds of work on, the general purpose computer, no, it's here to stay.
What about, what is next then? Other than just trying to make it smaller, not too small, but maybe in that ideal size, more powerful, faster. Is it voice recognition? What is next, that next big thing on the horizon?
Well, we are definitely seeing more people shifting from desktops to laptops. That's the whole netbook phenomenon. And we're seeing more and more features going into what people like to call the cloud, which means more programs being run off the Internet as opposed to on your computer. That means the computers themselves actually have to be less powerful because a lot of that power is being shifted onto big servers on the internet.
So almost like you pay for that power, you pay to have somebody else have that power rather than have it in your box, your particular box, however big it is.
Right, or you don't pay. With something like Google Docs, you're not paying per month. What you're doing is you're giving Google access to your personal information to sell advertising.
Okay, so as you mentioned, we had Atari, we had Commodore. What are the companies that are going to make it into this next generation? Clearly it's Apple, but who's going to be there to keep up with Apple?
Well, the Apple-Microsoft rivalry in personal computers seems set to continue for the next decade. There's really nobody else out there who is making core personal computer operating systems. Google has been talking a lot about this Chrome that they're doing, and they may be a player over the next 5 years. But so far, we're not too impressed with what we've seen of Chrome. It seems like a way to, it's a way to deliver a cheap web browser. But Google might be a third player. But Apple, Microsoft, Google, we're not seeing any other big players in terms of software on the desktop right now.
All right, we've got a few seconds. What about security? That's become such a big issue. And what it sounds like we're heading is whether it's Google, whether it's the government, knows everything about us and has access to all of our information. Should we be more careful with what we put on Facebook and things like that?
We absolutely should. I mean, there are two aspects to that. There's security and there's privacy.
Yeah.
And privacy is something which we need to talk about with our congressmen, we need to talk about among each other, and we need to ask who has access to this information legally, and should we be restricting that? In an era when everybody puts their lives on the internet, we need to be wary of what's out there on the internet.
Yeah, that certainly is a big change from the 80s until now. That's for sure.
Or how about you just don't put your whole life out on the internet?
I'm not putting my whole life out there, but, you know, some things, you know.
Flips me out. I will say this, though. I love Pac-Man. My kids are now playing Pac-Man. One of my favorite things.
You don't like Cobalt, but you like Pac-Man.
Love
We
Pac-Man.
figured that out
Sasha,
today.
thanks for being with us.
Good to see you, Sasha.
Thanks a lot.
Sasha Segan of PCMag.com.